Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ImageSource Chief Executive Officer, Terry Sutherland.
Whew. Well, here we are again. Welcome everybody to Nexus 2011. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out. We think that we put together a world-class event for you. Keeping three things in mind: we want to educate, we want to collaborate, and we want to have a little bit of fun. So we had a little bit of fun last night with some of you, kept me up late. Our main goals also, we want you to walk away with something to take back to your organization that will better position your organization to be competitive and drive your business processes forward. A couple exciting things that we're doing new this year. We're expanding to the East Coast, so many of our customers are here from the East Coast, so we will have services delivery on the East Coast in 2012, as well as Salesforce. The other thing that we've done that we're pretty excited about, and Cass Holloway will be doing a presentation on, is our ECM ecosystem. So it's an exciting new offering. We've taken our 17 years of experience and put it together for a consulting engagement for you. So if you want to learn more about that, that's a great session to attend, and we'd love to talk to you about that. A couple other things. We're excited this year. We're seeing growth again. We're projected for single-digit growth. Next year, we're looking at double-digit growth again, so we're very excited about that. We want to make sure that you are all comfortable here and that we are truly collaborating. So I want to open it up and make sure that I get a chance to speak and meet with each one of you. It's very important. We want to hear what we're doing well. We want to hear what we're not doing so well, and we want to hear what we're kind of doing okay. So please collaborate with us and let us know where we're at on that. So with that, once again, I'd just like to thank you all for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you throughout the event. This way.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ImageSource Communications Manager and your Master of Ceremonies, Kyle Miller.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to Nexus 2011. I want to extend a thank you to all of you who came to last night's welcome reception. I had a blast, and it was really exciting to get to meet some of you finally. 2011 has been a very exciting year in enterprise content management. The ECM industry is evolving rapidly, and with these changes have come many challenges. Our speaker this morning has spent more than 25 years with IBM, turning these challenges into new opportunities. The rise of social media has without question affected the way we run our businesses today. And as VP of Social Software for IBM, our speaker urges organizations to embrace these changes. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jeff Schick.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Well, in the opening session, when you started having all the lights come up, I was hoping it wouldn't behave like my Christmas tree, where one light went out and boy, the whole wall went. So, really worked pretty well there. So, let's jump right into it here. Okay. So I have indeed been at IBM for 25 years, and I've spent almost the last 2 decades working in the content space. So today's discussion is really about getting social and doing business. And what I thought I'd do is I'd cover some of the basics in and around, content management and talk about some of the new ideas that we have with content in motion. And I don't want to start off by getting on anyone's bad side, but we'll start to talk about some of the pitfalls that people see in enterprise content management today and some of the ways that we're addressing it. I'll spend a bit of time and talk about IBM's transformation in this space and what we're doing specifically. And I'll also spend some time and actually give you a unique insight as to what we're doing inside of IBM by making a bit of a demonstration of our environment and some of the ways that we're embracing these sorts of collaboration capabilities and integrating that with enterprise content management. We'll spend a little bit of time and go through some business examples and talk about how we can help to transform your organization. So I started off by saying I didn't want to get on your bad side, and many of you are working in the field of enterprise content management or running an enterprise content management system, and so have I. I've been building this technology for almost 20 years, and I hear things like, it's where content goes to die, right? It's inaccessible. What did we do with our stuff? And so, how are we going to change all of that? How are we going to fundamentally change this notion that that's where stuff goes to be archived? It's inaccessible, it's cumbersome to use. How are we going to move around that? So the idea here is that we want to have it accessible. We want our content to be contextual. We really want people to make use of it, that it's easy to find, easy to use, and it really drives and brings value to the business. Like, how are we going to do that? Right? What are the things that we fundamentally need to do in order to make that transformation happen? Well, today we sit many times as the system of record, right? It's the accurate place. It's where the right information exists in order to talk about a company's business controls information, or an insurance claims process, or an account opening, or Social Security disability benefits, or an IRS tax return. It sits in there as the system of record. Well, how do you make that information accessible? How do you bring it about in a way where it could be transient? There could be conversations had about this sort of information, that it really becomes immediate and accessible and genuinely of value to the organization. Well, I think about this idea of content in motion, how moving through this ecosystem of capture to activating, to analyzing, that whole process is brought to bear on every industry segment across every specific type of person within the business. I mean, that's really the idea of what we want to get to, that this fundamental enterprise content management repository that is infinitely scalable, supporting billions and billions of documents and images, now is made accessible. And we're unlocking that information so that it genuinely is made available in a way that it's useful across every industry segment, and it's useful to all manner of people within the organization. I mean, that's the fundamental objective that I see in my organization and what we're trying to build and develop moving forward, and what our clients are really asking for. Now, I want to spend at least part of the time and talk about this idea of social content management, right? This idea of really better connecting people with people and people with information, and making that information be accessible in a way where it's in time, it's in context, it's helping to make business decisions, and it's allowing you to make the right business decisions as opposed to coming to improper decisions. So, social content management, I think, opens the aperture of this information. It makes it accessible. Now, you might have heard of this term Web 2.0. I mean, how many of you folks today are members of Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter? Right? Almost every hand goes up, and for the people that didn't raise their hand, they either are people that don't raise their hands ever, or maybe, they know for sure that their kids are at least using this sort of technology. Now, the fundamental change here is Web 1.0. Publishing information was hard. You used to have to know some sort of complex, authoring tool, know HTML. It wasn't easy to publish information. But with the advent of Web 2.0 technology, people could self-generate content, publish it, make it easily available in ways easier than ever before. And when I got started down this space, I ran the enterprise content management team for well over a decade, and then I took over the responsibilities of building the collaboration capabilities for IBM. And as we started building these collaboration capabilities that were based on sort of a social capability and plugging that into content management, I used to say it in the beginning, people would say, social software, is there such a thing as anti-social software? Or if I put this stuff in, will people just goof around all day long, right? That's what you would get. And I used to think about that and say, this stuff is so easy to use, even young people can do it. Well, now I'm many years into this now, and I say it a bit differently now that we have this available in the enterprise. This stuff is so easy to use, well, even everyone can use it, right? Thought I was going to say something differently, probably. Well, so the idea behind this better connecting people and people with information is not just an inside the company thought. It really isn't. It's not just an outside the company thought. It spans who you work with, who you interact with, who do you have relationships, and that can span both inside and outside the organization for sure. Now, this is the obligatory, we did some studies on this stuff, and now we're proving that we're right. So we did a CEO study, an HR study, and we're really talking about looking at several thousand organizations that were really excelling in the marketplace. They were market leaders. They were organizations that were leading by a competitive advantage that had garnered superior customer satisfaction. And one of the things that we learned about these organizations is fundamentally they drive collaboration, that they built a culture of collaboration, built a culture of sharing, and they're doing so in a way that allows people to come together at a place and a destination and work together. So let's talk a little bit about what IBM's done along these ways. So traditionally, there's a set of entry points. Okay, those entry points span marketing, product management, dimensions of HR and operations, where you're at a steady state today. What are you traditionally doing? Okay, but as you move and progress forward, how do you want to deepen those client relationships? How do you want to drive operational effectiveness? How do you want to transform your workforce so that you get the right person over the right opportunity at the right time to yield the right result? And then leverage that intellectual property that may span the planet. How do I, if I'm building an RFP for an airline in the United States, and I had done similar work at Singapore Airlines, how do I capitalize on that? How do I make sure that the things that we learned there, the intellectual property that we developed, the things that we learned in and around the creation of the proposal could be brought to bear so I'm not always starting from scratch? And this is fundamentally what we're thinking about when we're talking about building a social business. It's really better connecting people with people and people with information and unlocking the value of content within that organization. So we are about 400,000 employees worldwide, actually 410,000 employees now, about 100,000 contractors and partners that live inside of IBM at any given moment. And we have a pretty diverse operating base. We work over 170 countries, and we serve markets that are both hardware, software, services, consulting, research, semiconductor manufacturing. So we have a pretty diverse workforce. Now, as IBM is a social business, we have people leveraging these social technologies every day. Some of the statistics here are over 18,000 blogs. We have 18,000 bloggers inside of IBM doing both purposeful as well as semi-purposeful blogging, right? The young coder that morning figured out a new way to write WebSphere connection pooling algorithm to access the ECM system for faster retrieval of objects. Well, maybe a little bit later on in the morning, they would have extolled the virtues of that morning. They put maple syrup and ketchup on their Egg McMuffin, and it's now their new favorite breakfast snack, right? But you may not think of us as a liberal organization, but we're pretty liberal in the way we sort of allow people to work together and share information and leverage the technologies. So we also use these technologies outside of IBM. IBM DeveloperWorks, we have almost 8 million registered users. It used to be a community for us that spanned, that's where you go to download some manuals, to truly a collaborative place where over 1 million people sit there today leveraging the collaboration capabilities, unlocking the information behind that and sharing. Now, here's where I'm going to jump out, and let's jump into a little bit of a demo for a second, right? And I cached pretty much everything, okay, because I wasn't sure about what the network would look like. But this is IBM's main intranet page, right? And front and center on our main intranet page, we are showing information about what's happening in my network. Okay, and I have the ability to search across all of those people. Now, if I did a search there for myself, this is my profile inside of IBM. We do about almost 6 million lookups a day to find the people that we know as well as the people that we don't know. This is all leveraged and powered by our content management system. And you start to see some interesting things that we post our status updates, that we have a wall type feature here. And I genuinely believe in this style of collaboration. It's a very vibrant environment where you could start to see people collaborating. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was draw upon some personal experiences sometimes. And this is live, so if you're seeing something that you shouldn't, just forget about it. Because it's my activity stream. I came home from work one day and my kid was sitting there and he said he left his homework at school. I said, you can't leave your homework at school. I want you to pick up the phone and call somebody in your class, or I want you to send them an email, and you have to do your homework. You can't not do your homework. I'm being a good dad here, being stern. And so I turn around about a minute later, and I see him writing on this kid's Facebook page. I said, what are you doing? I'm the head of collaboration. Oh, what are you doing? And he says, I told you to email him. I told you to call him up on the phone. He looks at me, he goes, Dad, email's for your grandfather. All right. So the kid responded within a minute's time, shared with him the homework. He was able to get the content and be able to leverage it. So I genuinely believe in this style of collaboration. When we put this sort of capability inside of IBM, we went from about 0 people doing it inside the organization to almost 290,000 in 9 weeks, right? So that's unbelievably viral. Also, we are huge users of communities. I think you can see this is a top community page here, and I'll show you a little bit more about some of the community stuff in a moment. But we have 37,000 communities. Those communities represent every science that we do, every product that we build, every industry that we serve, every standard that we observe. And there are communities that I could not even know that they exist based upon the access control of the community, where there may be communities that are focused on protected content and information, maybe associated specifically with, for example, an acquisition, right? But some of these are extremely large. Women in Europe, almost 21,000 members. The IBM Software Group community, almost 49,000 people participating in that community. Now, if we jump into a little bit about our Zeus project planning community, let's show a little bit about what we're doing here in Zeus. Let's see. Okay. Here I am in my Zeus community, and we're planning a technology called Zeus, okay? And there's a lot of information about that. There's forums, ideation capabilities, bookmarks, wikis, shared content, media galleries. And so if I want to access some of my specific protected content stored in my enterprise content management library, here I sit in a subcommunity with access to my legal library. And inside that legal library, this is a window into my enterprise content management system, with full fidelity, single sign-on. This is a view into a FileNet library. You know, nested folders, all of the documents in there with all the access controls synchronized with the community capability associated with that. And then when I click on an actual document, here's the actual document, and I could start to do things like, you know, apply, you know, based social characteristics to it, commenting it on it, tagging, rating, having it be part of the activity feed through notification when someone puts it, you know, into that content repository. So we fundamentally believe that you may have SharePoint, you may have quicker sites, you may have enterprise content management sites like FileNet or IBM Content Manager or Documentum or OpenText, and we're leveraging those CMIS APIs to provide strong, solid integration, you know, to those enterprise content management repositories, unlocking the value of that so that, for example, this is FileNet completely plugged into that sort of collaboration experience, making that information immediately available to that community. Now, something that's I think is kind of interesting here. So now we're looking at one of the files in this community specifically. And one of the things that I've wanted to do, and we've created this sort of with a web-based editing capability, is what if you want to check something out and then start to work on it immediately and do so through collaborative editing? So now I can open that document directly from within the repository, open that document directly, okay, and there we go. So, and it would have showed it in a sort of a collaborative editing sort of experience here, but maybe I just timed out here just by setting it cached there. So you would have seen us collaboratively editing the document that would have handled round-trip editing in and out of the repository directly. So not only are we making these sorts of documents accessible to communities and making those libraries, you know, available, accessible, transparent, but we're also allowing sort of collaborative editing capabilities directly out of the repository, which I think really is helping in terms of unlocking the value of that enterprise content management. Okay. So we'll just jump past this. So from my perspective, I've been marching around the planet, you know, looking at specifically, you know, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing to unlock content in a way that makes it accessible across every industry segment, across every line of business and role within the organization? And so examples of that are, how am I leveraging these sorts of technologies to support human resource practices? This is an example of SXC, okay? But I know that, you know, as we're leveraging these technologies, we're handling training and making training information available. We're handling all of our onboarding along these lines, okay? It is the way that we handle mergers and acquisitions. And in fact, in many respects, many of you have grown through mergers and acquisitions, and think about how long it takes for you to have a basic employee white pages capability that spans those acquired organizations. I mean, no longer do you have to move to reconcile, you know, merging your Active Directories or your LDAP structures. You know, you can just plug those into the profile capability and immediately move in a way where you have an organization that you have a single view of an employee across the enterprise. And so we also use these technologies to engage in, and recruit. This is in terms of community sites that we post on our .com, but it's also in ways that we are leveraging Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter for these business purposes as well. I'm not sure how many of you allow your employees to, you know, access those social media outlets, but we publish a lot of information into our content repository in terms of best practices, case studies, all manner of information that we really want to make accessible. And we've come to the fundamental conclusion is, not only do we have to make the content accessible, right, and do the right jobs of plugging into that enterprise content management repository so I can get at all of that important information. But we have to unleash our people. We have to build a culture that supports that level of, supports that level of interaction. So in times past, if you wanted to be the voice of IBM, you would have to get permission to talk externally about IBM. Now, we've moved in a way where we've actually have a set of business conduct guidelines. They help employees to understand how they should behave and dimensions of ethical behavior. We've augmented those business conduct guidelines with social media guidelines. And we're fundamentally asking all of our employees to be the voice of IBM now, right? Not to step outside the boundaries of their role, but if your role is that of a salesperson, okay, and you want to engage with your clients through our .com community capabilities or by co-opting a level of discussion in a LinkedIn community and sharing content that we've made available, we are absolutely asking our folks to move in that way. And so not only are we fundamentally changing the way human resource works in terms of the way we support recruiting and alumni and mergers and acquisitions and so forth, but we're fundamentally changing the way our employees are behaving, by their access to content and leveraging that to better the business value behind it. We have done an unbelievable amount in the world of banking here. Many of you are from large banks. We've done a considerable amount of work here, bridging the world of social and collaboration as well as content management. And there has been some obstacles along the way. There has been some speed bumps, okay? It's reasonably well understood how to do SEC-compliant email archiving. Like, what is your compliance responsibility behind email communication? It's reasonably well understood how you do that for instant message, right? But how do you do that for a wiki? How do you do that for a blog? How do you do that for a discussion forum, right? So, example, this gentleman in the front row is working at a large bank. He's just blogged about a specific merger or acquisition that should not have been public knowledge as of yet within the company, right? The 5 people in the front row over there read that blog, and the gentleman on the end went and said, well, that seems like public information, and he went and traded on it, right? Not that you're a bad guy. And went and traded upon that, and now he's in trouble. He was caught. Insider trading. He says, wait a second. I read this guy's blog right here. He talked all about that. Well, in the meanwhile, the guy had an oops moment and deleted that blog entry, right? The blog entry doesn't exist anymore. They go back to look at that from a compliance point of view, and he says, what blog entry? I don't know what you're talking about, right? How do you make adjustments within your business in terms of leveraging these collaboration capabilities and your content repository and make it so it's auditable, right? Meets those sort of regulatory and compliance capabilities. And so part of the invention here has been to, genuinely build it out so every notification, every event, every content submission, every interaction can be auditable, can be captured real time and added to your enterprise content management repository so that it becomes discoverable using a variety of tools that you may have, right? And so table stakes for being relevant in this space was to be able to move in a way where you had the flexibility of unlocking content, sharing information, working together, but the power of strong compliance and regulatory capabilities. Now, I've been working with HSBC for quite some time, and there's a couple of examples in HSBC where as they wanted to support their green initiatives across HSBC, as they wanted to make available an environment that supported the organization that supported their premier clients and how they could better support them, share best practices. These are important dimensions of how they brought people across all walks of life at HSBC and leveraged that content to better what HSBC was doing from a business perspective. Now, I've had the opportunity to work very closely with TD Bank. They've installed this technology capabilities out to almost 85,000 employees worldwide. And I think fundamentally one of the things that I thought was probably most important about how these folks went about it was that they brought together the people that were responsible for their content management systems, the senior leadership of information technology, all the lines of business, the people that were responsible for human resource, the people responsible for compliance, legal representation, right? And they brought those folks together as a nucleus of people that were fundamentally going to transform TD Bank by better connecting people with people and people with information and unlocking both the content and value that people have, right? Because on a smarter planet, what we're talking about here is people being a major factor in building a smarter planet. So it was important at TD that they organized in this fashion to knock down any specific obstacles in terms of compliance, if we're leveraging this technology and people are, have access to information, what happens if someone's viewed as giving advice, right? Even though they're an employee giving advice to another employee, how do we sort of handle that level of interaction? So they had to build the sort of policies behind this as well as a culture to sort of sustain this level of interaction. Now, I've also spent a lot of time working with a lot of insurance organizations in this space, and think about some of the ways that basic workflow are handled today in the insurance claims processing space. I scan in that insurance claim, it goes through a processing cycle. Maybe I'm capturing information directly off the form, populating metadata, then I'm moving it down the path of review and approval. And the organizations have become brilliant in how automated that they're working in this way. But I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of organizations that when there's fundamentally an exception in this process, when there's something that's askew, how do you reconcile that? Still, we see people today sort of fumbling, writing some notes down on a little notepad, trying to call somebody at a help desk, trying to find their supervisor to pose a specific question. And what we fundamentally have done is bridge the gap between that business process and that level of ad hoc collaboration that better connects experts and information with that process so that one could, on a more timely basis, reconcile that exception and move it along its path in the business process. Right? So when we start to think about advanced case management, there's an inflection point here that says to socially enable that business process, to collaboratively enable that business process, can make that business process more efficient. Now, I'll stop here and make a point on this idea of innovation. Innovation, to me, represents the intersection between invention and insight. Right? Apple was not the first company to make an MP3 player, right? But they had unique insight into the device, the form factor, how easy it was to use, the creation of a digital ecosystem for download of music that almost single-handedly eradicated music piracy by making songs available at 99 cents. Well, maybe good songs a little bit more now. But almost single-handedly eradicated piracy, and it was their unique insight into the device that allowed them to enjoy the market share today. Now, let me tell you something. Innovation doesn't have to be big explosions and fireworks and new products. It really doesn't have to be. It could simply be connecting the people that need to know with the people that do know, right? I am responsible for the business process of insurance claims, and how can I affect better throughput, having less exceptions, speeding that transaction through it to its end result, okay? And connecting the people that need to know with the people that do know. And so I all the time in IBM, and sometimes it's not always comfortable for me, or anyone for that matter. I mean, we have the opportunity inside of our organization for people to share their thoughts. I'll, in a blog or through my status updates in my microblog, share some piece of information. I've made the decision about the following, product set or standard that we're going to focus on. I will have an entire set of engineers right behind me questioning, is Jeff right? Should we have done it this way? On and on. But I'll tell you this, we're a better company because of it, right? I have learned much because of that. I've made adjustments because of that. And I think this idea of unlocking innovation within your organization comes with connecting people that need to know with people that do know, or people that need to know with information that can help them make those decisions. And fundamentally, that's one of the things that we're trying to do here. Now, I'm not sure how many folks here from the government are here, but we have many, many opportunities to build better government, smarter government, help better support our citizens. There's an unbelievable amount of information in content management systems, whether it be IRS tax returns or Social Security disability benefits, or an unbelievable amount of information in and around, E. coli or something like that within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And unlocking that information and making it available to citizens really feels like the order of the day. Building interfaces that allow people to find that information, share that information, collaborate together, has to be the way that we better things. And so I had the opportunity to work closely with the U.S. federal government on college.gov. I have a son that just started college this year. He's a freshman at Wesleyan. And I really wanted him to learn about his opportunities in going to school. And I had worked with the U.S. Department of Education on college.gov. So I had him participate in college.gov, and it helps young folks learn about their opportunities to go to school. And if they don't have the sort of economic status to learn about different grants, different programs, different loan scenarios. But really, it was an environment where college.gov matched senior people at school, juniors and seniors, with young people that were in high school that were thinking about going to college. And not only were they making all of their content available, but they were connecting people to help support them and mentor them and show them the path on how to get to school. And so, to me, I think that's a great example of, bettering government and helping young folks to learn about the way to go to get to school and unlock the wealth of information that they had in their content repositories. This was a particularly exciting project to work on. I've been working with the United Nations for probably the last decade, specifically with peacekeeping. It is an unbelievable amount of information that they keep in their enterprise content management repository in terms of regulations, incident reports, and how peacekeeping leverages that information now and makes it accessible to peacekeeping operations is an unbelievable step change in terms of how their operations are running. They have fundamentally taken their enterprise content repository with billions of documents in terms of historical record, regulations, and unlocked that and made that available across all the dimensions and areas of the United Nations, including peacekeeping operations. And let me tell you something. I mean, some of the challenges that you're solving in this space are not just unlocking the content, not just making that information accessible, bounded by access control, but let me tell you something. If I thought it was a struggle getting content across the network to a low bandwidth link into an HSBC branch in Brazil, it was nothing compared to the challenges of getting content, into someone that was in Somalia or Mogadishu, and they actually use this technology to support their disaster operations across the Haiti disaster in terms of, managing deployment of resource and management of content and information coming back in through the disaster. So a pretty important scenario where they've bridged the gaps between their wealth of information and the ways in which they're unlocking its value. Now, probably one of the areas that I think are probably one of the areas that are usually a starting point within an organization is the marketing team. There's a wealth of information coming from the marketing team in terms of branding, just inside of IBM in terms of, our branding content repository, spanning all the IBM logo information and, ad campaign specific information is a huge repository, several terabytes large. And being able to have a consistency so that if any part of the business wants to use that brand, leverage that information, and start to build new campaigns or new projects that require that sort of marketing-based information, we have a single place where it resides. But how you handle that, beyond the boundaries of your walls also becomes important. How do you build content inside your organization and bring it outside? How do you listen to what's happening out there in the internet or look for content that's out there and bring that inside, work on it, and build deliverables against that? I mean, this is a really exciting space for us now, this space of social listening, and it's remarkable the amount of information it's generating, the amount of information that we're pulling in. As we launch new campaigns on new products, this idea that we're going to do some social listening. What are they what's being said about this new product? What are people writing about this new product? How can I bring that in and have that information stored so that I can gauge and then better our overall business result? There's a lot of opportunity that we see in terms of how marketing and communications unlocks information and uses that information to better the results of the business and spans both inside and outside access. Now, I have spent a lot of time working with organizations in the world of customer service, right? I've heard more than a handful of times, by the time we get somebody trained to be excellent in customer support and customer service, they're about ready to be done with that job. It's not easy doing customer support and customer service, sitting at the end of that phone, answering those questions. So how can you make sure that you're bringing the right expert to bear, the person that has the best information to support that interaction? How can you have that organization support a myriad of channels that don't just span the phone, but can span alternate channels like, somebody just posed a question related to support on our Twitter feed. How do I get that into the hands of the right customer service representative and make sure that they have the right sort of information made available? There's a huge opportunity to better the result in the customer service center in terms of gaining a competitive advantage by enjoying better customer satisfaction, by successfully supporting your client and resolving those issues. Now, it's absolutely an area where we see demonstrable return on investment. In each of these cases, folks ask, what's the return on investment? How can I, in unlocking the content that sits within our repository and better leveraging it through social and collaboration technologies, how can I really know that I'm bettering the business? What is the return on investment for actually doing that? And we've seen in our call centers, increase in customer satisfaction and absolutely increase in morale by folks being able to get to information more quickly and be able to resolve problems on a more timely basis. With that said, on IBM.com, we have communities, some of which sit in DeveloperWorks, others are on other parts of the IBM.com property. By moving to online discussion forums staffed by IBMers, which in turn captures the tacit knowledge of the discussion on what the issue was, searchable based on tags, full text index, we have reduced our operating costs on a yearly basis for support by $100 million, right? Which is absolutely incredible in terms of moving to self-service-based models along those lines. Now, socially enabled R&D. There's an unbelievable amount of engineering documents, architecture documents, products, formulas, information that sits within research and development. I worked with Rheinmetall for a couple of years with their CIO, Marcus Bentelay, and they really wanted to deploy these technologies to better connect their businesses. A large part of Rheinmetall is defense-based. They make the howitzers, the Leopard 2 tanks, and so forth for many of the European nations. But they also make automobile parts for Mercedes-Benz and BMW and so forth. And so they had solved fundamental engineering issues in the defense business, in and around viscosity of fluids, in and around the ball bearing assemblies and the new treads, because they upped the horsepower in the Leopard 2 tanks. And they were being challenged by a similar science problem over in the automobile division with some of the new things that they needed to make from one of the new Mercedes-Benz vehicles. And by sort of sharing that research, by bridging the gaps between the defense organization and the automobile organization, still bounded by access control, still bounded in a way where proprietary confidential information was not released, they were able to solve a problem on a much more timely basis. And I know that when I got started on this project, I said to Marcus goes, when we get this all done and this is up and running, I want to invite you to the northern part of Germany where we have, sort of our Rheinmetall weapons test facility where we have both NATO land and Rheinmetall's properties that span hundreds of kilometers, and we'll, go up there and we'll do our planning session on the next version of what we do here, and it will be a nice opportunity for us to spend time together and the team to work together because it's a nice, interesting property. I looked at Marcus and I said, Marcus, if I do a really good job, I want to drive one of your Leopard 2 tanks. And man, that thing flies. I mean, I'm tearing off across these fields through sand and hills. I mean, he wouldn't let me shoot it, but it was, it was fun driving it. So product development. I can tell you that every step of the way we use these technologies to support our product development process. We have a formal integrated product development process within the IBM Corporation. You must follow this process in order to support our compliance and audit requirements. And so as you build product, the opportunity to take that content, store it, leverage it over the course of the life cycle of building that product becomes a critical part of how we build and develop products. We use these technologies to fundamentally share information, work together on the ideas of developing the product all the way through to the life cycle of that. So across the requirements and concept phase, through the overall plan development, through the availability and QA aspects of that, we're leveraging these sort of social collaboration capabilities to work together to share information, but also have that sort of robust, infinite scalability supporting hierarchical storage management and the sort of full life cycle and compliance capabilities that our organization has asked us to take. Now, this was a pretty fun organization to work with. An unbelievable amount of content, an unbelievable amount of information at Harley. And in fact, you look at the way our user experiences look and work, and this ain't your father's hog here. It's really quite amazing some of the ideas that these folks had in terms of unlocking their content and really trying to build new markets, right? And so a couple of the spaces that they were not addressing. Harley had, absolute penetration into certain markets, but had made very, very little inroads in racing or with women, right? And so their idea was to build an online experience that was allow women to, learn about what others were doing, to share their experiences, to post rides that they might have had, all stored within the content repository, searchable, accessible, and available in order to support their brand. Right? And a very, very sort of exciting, scenario in terms of, how they wanted to unlock their content and actually attract and develop new markets along those lines. So, a little bit about what IBM and ImageSource can do for you. I mean, a lot of folks think about this space and say, well, how do I get started? Like, how do I move from the type of organization that I was, the type of ways in which we're able to leverage content today, to an organization that's genuinely leveraging its talent, that's genuinely making the right information available to the people within the organization, that you've unlocked the value of that information. And I think the good folks from ImageSource, have a lot of skills, talent, technology that can really help you along that journey, to unleash content in motion and make that available in a way where you've genuinely bettered your business value based upon the infrastructure that you have. And this is not a rip and replace thought, either. I think that, these ideas here are not, exclusive, specifically to IBM as a vendor. I think there are other, folks out there that have made similar approaches in terms of market. But I hope what you took away from this is that the concept of taking that enterprise content management capability and really bringing that in a way where you could take those business processes, you could take that information and genuinely make it available to the people that need it when they need it, in a way that they need it, in a way that is just absolutely simple, absolutely intuitive, and super simple to use. So, that was my discussion today, and thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you all, and thank you, Jeff, for the presentation. It was a real treat having him here today, and it definitely is a testament to how we try to make Nexus bigger and better every year.